Well, now on Big Blend Radio, we have two special guests joining us for a special conversation focusing on artists who paint the Sonoran Desert and its iconic saguaro cactus. We have Dr. Mark Sublette joining us. He's the founder of the Medicine Man Gallery, as well as the Maynard Dixon Museum in Tucson, which is part of the gallery. And he's also the author of a number of catalogs on Native American subjects and is an authority on the artwork of Maynard Dixon. And he's also an author of the Charles Bloom Murder Mystery Series. So,
wow.
Yeah, very, very cool. You can go to his website for Maynard Dixon, go to maynarddixon.org, and also go to medicinemangallery.com. Welcome, Doctor. How are you?
Very good. You've got all of my websites mentioned, so I feel like I'm pretty much done with what I need to do.
Okay, well, thank you for playing.
It was really great.
Show.
It was so fun. And you win a saguaro cactus.
Oh, good. Just don't touch it. Don't touch it. I want to bring our other guest on, Victoria Chick. She is based in Silver City, New Mexico, which just a hop, skip, and a jump and into a different desert from Tucson here. She is a contemporary figurative artist and early 19th, 20th century print collector, and you can view her work at victoriachick.com and also read her art column and listen to her past interviews with us here on Big Blend Radio. Go to blendradioandtv.com, and actually she's written a whole article about Arizona artists who have painted the Sonoran Desert that actually literally it's like this whole new style of plein air painting. I'm kidding. How are you doing, Victoria?
I'm just wonderful, Lisa. Thank you for having me on today.
Hey, I'm very excited about this. You know, this whole topic just started to grow and grow and grow. It's like, let's talk about artists that painted saguaro cactus, and then you're like, my favorite artist of this is Maynard Dixon, and then next thing you know, we have Mark on this show, so I'm glad. It's got bigger and bigger. Yeah.
Well, I think it's wonderful. I'm very honored to be on the show with you, Mark.
Well, I'm happy to have you too. I'm going to have to read some of your writings. It sounds like you have some very interesting topics that are dear to my heart as well. I love anything that has to do with the Sonoran Desert. I think it's such an important area to cover, and it's an interesting when you see artists that try to paint this desert. If they haven't come and visited and actually spent time, it becomes very clear quickly. And that may be something we would like to a topic that would be interesting for your listeners.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I think
well, I know it would.
The Sonoran Desert is one of the most biodiverse deserts in the world, and it's so fascinating. Especially, we've got 5 seasons out here. Before we talk about some of the artists, and especially Maynard Dixon, Mark, I wanted to ask you, what led you into the world of art? Because I know that you're a physician, and then now you're a writer, and then I've watched you've got all these YouTube videos talking about Navajo rugs and all kinds of art. I mean, you seem to cover everything to do with the Southwest.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why it really is called Medicine Man Gallery, because I was a physician before I got into the art world. But I've always loved art, and there was a point in my career, which early on, luckily, that I realized that, I really would prefer to read art books than I would the New England Journal of Medicine. And so I made that switch. And that was 26 years ago. I opened my gallery, Medicine Man Gallery, and I've never looked back. I started writing my murder mysteries, which are set in the Southwest. The protagonist is an art dealer set in Santa Fe and on the Navajo Nation around Totalina about 10 years ago. And now my 7th book in the Charles Bloom series will be coming out in May.
Well, good timing. Awesome. I love this.
Cool.
So you've got that kind of thing that's happened to the artists as well, Victoria. Your article, you talk about how artists it was the advent of the air conditioner that helped artists later on to actually move here.
Well, I think air conditioning helped everybody, but yes, certainly, because before that, there were a lot of artists there, but they were mostly in the northern part of Arizona, near Flagstaff. Okay. So they would venture down into the Sonoran area in the wintertime.
And, it is beautiful in the wintertime, but I have to tell you, I think my favorite season is the summer in the Sonoran Desert. Mark, am I the only crazy one out here that's into the summer?
No, you're not. In fact, Maynard Dixon actually came to Arizona to paint in the summer. He came in circa 1900. He came to Yuma and Mojave, and he did this great little drawing that we have in the Maynard-Dixon Museum that's called 121 in the Shade. And that's really what it was. It's he is at the Mojave Trading Post in July of 1900, painting for 4 months, and it was crazy to think about what an artist was in Arizona before we were even a state, and yet he's out there doing his thing, capturing all the desert, capturing the indigenous people. So he loved the heat, and there's good reason. There's less people.
I'm with you on that. We have a big passion and a quest to visit all 417 national park units and cover them on our site nationalparktraveling.com and Parks and Travel magazine. And what's interesting is, like, we go into parks and we film and do all this stuff and we promote the parks, and then when we go there, we're like, get out of my park. Yeah. It's like,
no,
we don't want people around us. Just leave us alone. And it's like when you go into Saguaro Park, we have our special places. No, this is our spot.
Yeah.
You get like that. And I think artists and writers are kind of like the solo style. Don't you think, Victoria? I know you're an artist, but do you want to sit and have a group painting session, or would you rather be alone?
Oh, I would always rather be alone. Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's something, there's solitude, and people say, I want to watch you paint. Well, that's not going to be very exciting, because painting is thinking, and it's not very exciting to watch a person just sit and think about what they're going to do.
It really is.
I would disagree. I would disagree with that. If you really are into art, I would love to watch you paint, because watching that process as an artist, thinking about what they're going to do and how they manipulate the paint and where they put it, I think is so interesting to people who are really involved. Yeah, to the average person, yes, it's probably like watching paint dry on a house.
When you see these painting videos, and people look like they're creating masterpieces in 20 minutes, and so people get used to that kind of fast time frame. And when they come to an artist studio, we have studio tours here, and we say, well, let's do a demonstration. Well, I just have my work up. I can't do demonstrations. So
I have to
you'll
say
sell more
that,
if you do.
Yeah.
That's true, but
yeah, I did an art tour in South Africa for the Cancer Association. I painted in public every single day for about
2.5 years.
2.5 years, and I will never, ever, ever, ever strike me dead. I won't do it again, ever.
No,
it's the most. It is so hard, because everybody has an opinion, and they don't think anything of, like, whether they should say it or not. They just say it or not, and like they just, it'll be, that doesn't look right. That's not supposed to be over there. Look, it's supposed to be over there. And I'm like, shut up.
That's art. I know. I try to be your bodyguard.
I hear a book coming. I think that's a very good book right there.
Yeah.
That was interesting. I used to have to protect her from kids with snotty noses and people with ice cream.
Cones,
yeah, that was it.
And people who come up and put their hand on the painting.
No.
Do you think it would be better over there? Or, how'd you mix that color? And you're just like, oh.
But the huge thing that came out of that was, not only did you raise money for the Cancer Association, but you educated people, because a lot of people hadn't seen it, so there was an education part of it. But I want to get into Maynard-Dixon, because, Victoria, you turned me on to Maynard-Dixon, and I've been looking at his work, again, maynarddixon.org. Victoria, tell us about your fascination with him, and then I want to go to Mark and how he has like a whole museum in his gallery dedicated to Maynard, which I can see why.
I came across, first of all, I have to preface with this with saying I'm from the Midwest, okay? And when I moved to California first, there was a whole group of artists that were fabulous I never heard of. Then I moved to New Mexico, and I experienced the same thing about Southwestern artists. And that was where I came across Maynard-Dixon. And I loved his work mainly because he saw Arizona like I see New Mexico, which is space and certain types of formations, and whether it be clouds or cliffs, or the way vegetation is arranged. It just speaks to me, and I think that's what got me about his work.
Well, he was also in California too, wasn't he, Mark?
Well, yeah,
yes.
he was from San Francisco, I think.
Yes.
Was
he was born in Fresno. Yeah, he was born in Fresno, California, in 1875, November 24th or January 24th, and yeah, I agree with you. I mean, there is something about Dixon and the way he sees space and lines that is very unique, and it's captivating to me as well.
The light he got, I think, is wonderful. You know, whatever time of day he was representing.
And he had a problem. It's very interesting. When he would go to places like Lake Tahoe in 1924, or visit Charlie Russell in Montana in 1917, he always felt kind of enclosed with these trees, and it was very difficult for him to paint vistas of trees. He was looking for the horizon at all times, and there was something about how he saw the world was in straight, flat lines. And as he progressed as an artist, you'll see this, especially beginning in about 1922 to 23, he really starts incorporating large clouds and makes the vista, 2/3 sky and 1/3 land. And you really can't do that if you're painting a bunch of trees. You have to have distance. You have to have that perspective. He even painted things from a height. One of the things many people don't realize is Maynard Dixon was really the individual who got the Golden Gate Bridge passed in 1930, the bond for $35 million, and he did this by painting.
Wow.
Yeah, he did this by painting a vista of what that Marin Golden Gate Bridge would look like, looking from above and over it, and that was the impetus for being able to get that passed. So Dixon had and not only did he have that in his back pocket, he also was the one who got the bridge red. So he wrote the Board of Supervisors. He wrote the Irving Morrow in 1937 when they're getting ready to paint it, because the Board of Supervisors for the bridge wanted it to be black or black and gray, and Dixon said, listen, I know a thing about color, and if you want it to be the great wonder of the world, you better keep it that red, the undercolor red of the lead.
Yes.
And he did. They did, and they listened to him. So Dixon had all sorts of impact, continues to have impact, not only from an aspect of things like the Golden Gate Bridge, but all the artists of today. And I'm sure that our fellow panelists here would also say that there's many artists that are painting in today's world, people like Ed Mell, Howard Post, Josh Elliott, to name just a few, that are inspired by this man's work and continue to produce great things, and he was the cornerstone.
That's amazing.
I find that very interesting about the bridge, because when I look at his paintings, I see a lot of his organization is very structural anyway, of the land, with the organization of landscape in the sky, and that bridge that he was able to see that is really great.
He uses what's called dynamic symmetry, which is he used a bridge form of dynamic symmetry in his setup, which was a mathematical kind of way that you look at composition, and you can. If you look at any of his paintings, any of his compositions, you'll see there is this. You're correct. There's a symmetry that flows, and it's pleasing to the eye.
Oh yeah.
And that's a cornerstone of one of the things that Dixon's known for. That and the fact that when he's out in these areas like New Mexico and Arizona and Colorado, all these different places, he's capturing the indigenous people as he sees them. He's not romanticizing them. He's showing their daily work, what they're doing. He's using their native name on the painting, so they are real individuals, not props. And that's another thing that drew me into this guy's work, not only his dedication to capturing the West in its truest form, but he also didn't pull punches and showed what was going on with the indigenous population, the native population, the changing environment of the West, mines, and all that sort of thing. So he's a very important artist, in not only in the West and Southwest, but I think a very important artist. And of course, he's married to Dorothea Lange, who's one of the 20th century's most important photographers.
Right.
Amazing, and I wonder like how their conversations were, about that. I love the story of the Golden Gate Bridge also because that's also part of our national park system. It's like this is so cool.
I know the artists have a lot to do with our park.
Well,
system.
yeah, and I think it's so interesting because I think in a way. These artists that came to Arizona and started painting the saguaros, it's interesting, Maynard Dixon being near Fresno was near the sequoias. That whole area is surrounded by parks. But I know we've talked about Thomas Moran, Victoria, a lot on the show. But these artists, I think, helped put like the saguaro cactus and the desert scenery in people's minds. When we came back to the States after living in Africa, like the saguaro cactus was like, I want to go to the desert. And when you think of the desert, you think of Joshua trees and saguaro cactus. Like that's your thing. That's what you see. Yeah. Of course, cowboys are in there, Native Americans, like the whole thing. But there's this iconic, they're just so iconic. And I think that they helped tourism to the areas.
For sure.
Yeah, Mark, what do you think? Because you run a gallery, do you see a lot of international visitors come through because part of that visual idea of what the desert is with the saguaro cactus?
Yeah, there's no doubt. We have the Sonoran Desert Museum here, which is an international draw. And, the saguaro cactus only occurs in a very small sliver of the United States through Arizona and then, of course, down through Mexico. And any cactus that lives for 300 years that gets to 60 feet height is a compelling imagery for sure. And no doubt that we do see people that come just for that. In fact, I had a show called The Art of the Saguaro this summer, which was just dedicated to artists that have painted the saguaro cactus from anywhere from about 1870 to contemporary. And it was very interesting. I hadn't seen that kind of show done before, but when you really started doing a retrospective look, there was a lot of artists that came to paint it. And you could tell the ones that spent time and painted it correctly because they don't make them look like little stick figures. They realize that they have imperfections, that they have been destroyed by rats, that their arms are twisted, and that and if you don't capture that, you really miss the essence. And as an art gallery owner, one of the things that I use as a parameter actually for deciding, if somebody can paint the Sonoran Desert is I want to see how they look at a saguaro cactus and paint it. And because if they can't get that, really they're not going to be. I can't sell it because I won't personally like it.
Oh, that's that's integrity. Yeah,
it's true. Yep. It's such a strange plant. Because then when we go on hikes, we see saguaros with their arms pointing down instead of up, and it's rare to see a painting where the arms of the cactus are pointing down, but some of them do. And I'm not really sure why that's happening. Or if they're about to die. I don't know. But
it's freezing,
some of their arms
actually is what. It's a freezing mechanism. It's because what happens is that when you have a frost or a freeze, especially a hard freeze, it kills that part of the cactus arm, and then they twist. So, and you'll see it when you look in stands of saguaros. Certain areas, especially low around the arroyos, will have large areas that have twisted arms, and that's because it got colder and they were affected. And so you can tell a lot about the microclimate of that area from just looking at the way the saguaro's arms are bent.
Wow. This is fascinating. Well, we should have been at your exhibit.
Yeah.
Victoria, we're a year late. I hope you do it again sometime. But you lent us a photo of one of Maynard Dixon's paintings to use in our feature with Victoria's article and everyone. This will be in the April-May issue of Parks and Travel magazine. And it's a saguaro, Tucson-Arizona, 1940 that he did. And Victoria, you're so right on the light. I'm just looking at it. It's got the warmth and then like the harshness and the movement. He's got like movement in the light. It's amazing. But now, how come his painting is saguaro with the H instead of a G? Yeah,
and you can do it either way, just like you do with Navajo can also be with an H as well.
Okay.
So, and that's an older terminology. And if you look at that image, and of course, you're on the radio, you can't see it, but I'll describe it. You'll look at the cactus, and you'll notice you can see all the ribs and the different intricate designs of a close-up of a saguaro. In fact, he cuts off the top of the saguaro at the very top of the painting to really bring you into the center of the saguaro, so you focus on how magnificent this object of this creation is. And so he's explored the saguaro in a way many artists wouldn't. Most would have never cut off the tops of the saguaros. They would have, they show the whole saguaro, but reality of it, by doing that, he's made it much more powerful in its imagery, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's got the flesh. Victoria, you were going to say something there?
Well, I just in response to what Mark just said about the cactus being cut off. I think that a lot of artists that came after him borrowed his not a motif, but his use of that, because it is very structural. I'm thinking of Richard Diebencourt, who I think for a while was a New Mexico artist, and
yes, he was.
When he was in his figurative mode, he would start to make things go out of the picture, using the edge of the canvas, kind of anchoring everything to the edges. And I think that particular painting you're talking about of Dixon's, of that cactus, served the same purpose, and as well as it does bring you in. You're absolutely right. It makes you feel that you're right there, close to it.
And he developed that really from his years working at Foster and Kleiser, which is the biggest advertising firm in San Francisco between 1917 and 1921. And Dixon would be the first one to tell you that learning composition from having that stay really helped him as an artist. And of course, he spent time in New York from 1907 to 1912 as one of the top illustrators in the country. And so his illustrative background really helped him, I think, develop a unique and interesting style. And you're 100% correct. I do see a lot of artists who incorporate what Dixon was doing, 100 years earlier.
Wow.
Right.
It reminds me of Leighton Fossum, Victoria, who we were talking about last month, with the illustration background, But yeah, I think this, to me, when you look at all the different artists, you've got Maynard. Now, you decided so the museum is within your gallery, right, at Medicine Man Gallery?
Correct. There's a wing of my gallery, and in it we have over 150 original drawings, oils, watercolors, as well as his easel that he painted all his paintings on, and tons of ephemera as well.
Cool. How did you get that? How did you get his easel?
Time, money, and the easel I was fortunate to be able to get from the family. I knew John Dixon quite well, who was Maynard's son, so they were very good in helping me acquire some things that were, really helped tell the story of Maynard Dixon's life. And it's fun to look at that easel because it's covered in blue paint, his famous sky color, and the whole thing is just blue. And it's every once in a while you see some artists over there, they're trying to chip off a little piece to take it off as a memory.
I think this is so interesting, the easel, because we were talking about this. We were talking about Leighton Fossum, and I came across his easel that he had used, and he had been an illustrator first as well, and he had practiced. He had attempted all these little faces and stuff on his easel before he ever put them into his paintings, and the easel takes on a life almost.
Wow.
I agree.
It represents the person really intimately.
It's just like your guitar as a musician. I mean, look at Willie Nelson's guitar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta look at it's part of who
what's
you
left
are.
of it.
Yeah, what's left of it. I mean, it's got that hole coming in, like he could just stick his hand in there.
It's just going to go right on
I know. Victoria, you also mentioned some other artists in your article, and there seems to be a lot of women that got into painting the desert, the Sonoran Desert, but you said a lot of them were actually in the Prescott area.
Well, they were the early ones, and that Lillian, what was her name? I can't remember
Wilhelm
her name was.
William Smith.
Lillian Wilhelm Smith, right.
Smith.
I haven't looked at it for a while. Anyway, she was great. She was a German artist, and came to this country when she was very young. She was so gifted that she was studying at the Art Students League by the time she was 12 years old, and she wanted to be single. She wanted to be her own woman. She moved to the West very early. She forego marriage. She decided to do that. You may recognize her if you've ever seen any of Zane Grey's early works that were illustrated by her. She was his second cousin or cousin-in-law, and he introduced her to the Wild West. He took her to the Buffalo Bill Wild West show in New York. He arranged for her to draw and paint the Indians there, and she was really fascinated because she had this was her first experience. So he asked her to come to Arizona with him in 1913 on an expedition that he wanted to take into Navajo area, to the reservations, because he was going to use that material for his novels, he thought. And so I can't imagine what this must have been like for her because she'd never been on a horse before, and she had to take a 2-week horseback trip of 400 miles to get to where they really wanted to go. I think I admire her, and she had a guide that helped her get me as comfortable as possible. But anyway, they did the novel. She went back to New York, but she really, really missed Arizona. So at one point, she decided to move back to Arizona. She oddly enough, didn't move to the northern part of Arizona. She moved to the Phoenix area. And in 1920s, that wasn't easy. But she lived there the rest of her life and continued to produce.
Wow, that's amazing because Zane Grey helped everybody get over here. I mean, he still influences so many Europeans to come out to the Southwest and the West as a whole, you know? He's an icon.
She did a couple of books for him, actually.
Yeah. There were a lot of artists in northern New Mexico, in the Prescott and Flagstaff area, who were trained on the East Coast, and they moved west mainly because they married people who decided they wanted to be ranchers, and their husbands may have romanticized ideas about it, but they were painters and they supported each other. They got together, they helped each other and critiqued each other's work. They didn't, New Mexico and Arizona were similar at that time period because there were so few people. There was not a market for much artwork to be sold in those states. So they would ship their work back to the East Coast.
Wow.
Where they were actually pretty successful.
Or start their own museum like Mary Russell Farrell Colton. So she was trained in Pennsylvania, one of the Pennsylvania Six, and started the Museum of Northern Arizona in 1928 with her husband Harold Colton, and was a fantastic artist in her own rights. And it is interesting. There was a lot of very strong women artists in Arizona, people like Kate Corey and Wilhelm Smith, and it's part of our history in Arizona.
Yeah. There was another a printmaker named George Burr whose work I really, really like, especially his desert scenes I really like. But he was from Cameron, Missouri, and he was doing etchings very early, like in the 1870s, when it was still new on the East Coast. And I was curious as to how he heard about that particular technique. Because he didn't travel any, he was just a very young man. I don't know how the word got to him, but it did, and he dumped everything. His father had a hardware store, and he was supposed to become a hardware man, but he left the world of hardware behind and went to Chicago and studied etching then for several months, and then got a job as an illustrator. So then he wound up in Phoenix in 1924 and stayed there. But my research didn't show anything as to how he became aware of etching.
Huh. How interesting. these artists that come out west. It's interesting when our magazine was southwestblend.com many years ago. It was amazing. Just the readership we were seeing, the amount that came out of Pennsylvania and New York, for some reason, was huge for the Southwest, and it's still there.
It's still there.
It's a very interesting thing how people come over here, and I think Mark, I know that you handle a lot of artists. Do you think that a lot of the artists end up moving here because the sky is like big? It's like we're like the desert Montana, that there's this big open view.
Well, there's no doubt. I mean, having grown up in the Southwest in New Mexico, and having had a gallery in Santa Fe for 20 years as well, you do see a lot of artists that come to this area, and they're amazed with not only the big skies, but the colors are different. They're this vibrant blue that they can't imagine exists when you're living in some place like Columbus, Ohio. And I think it does draw them in to the west. And of course, if you come from an environment of cloudy area, and I'll just throw in my doctor's hat here, being able to get sunshine, there's a couple different syndromes that occur when you don't get enough sunlight, and you actually do feel better when you are exposed to real sunlight. And so if you're an artist and you feel better, you see colors differently than you ever had, and you have an horizon that is very different than what you could have ever gotten on the East Coast. That has to be extremely compelling. You look at all the Taos founders, and they all were, Joseph Henry Sharp came from Cincinnati, and E. Martin Hennings came from Chicago, as did Walter Ufer, and Bloom and Burninghouse came from St. Louis. They all came from different areas of the East Coast and ended up in Taos, New Mexico, and also people in Santa Fe, and it had a lot to do with the skies and the air. There's no doubt in my mind about that.
And maybe even, a little bit about overcrowding. I was reading a stat report on tourism and overcrowding and why people come out west and why they go for nature. Like there's not just the sunlight, but just the idea of you can actually move, and they were talking about being inside is negative space and being outside is positive space, and feeling like you can actually stretch your arms out without hitting anybody in the crowd.
Wow.
Unless you're in Phoenix.
Yeah, right. I know. We stay as south as we get, as far as we can south here. But I was going to ask too, Mark. When you look at Tucson and Silver City, just east of us, Silver City is this, blossoming art community. I mean, it's just become this little, it's like a mountain hamlet that you're in, Victoria, of art of all types, from photographers and filmmakers to painters and muralists. When you look at Tucson, I see this as like an art city. I know everyone talks about Santa Fe, but I see Tucson as just even the architecture being an art hub.
Well, I think there's no doubt that there is a correlation between Santa Fe and Tucson, and it's been there for a long time. There was many different galleries, not only my own, but people like Bate and the Thunderbird shop that had shops, from the 20s on that were in Tucson and Santa Fe. And there is a sense of the architecture, the triculture, the mountainous region that's around here that is very similar to Santa Fe, and it causes a lot of artists to want to come here. We do have a very large artist population that lives in southern Arizona, not only in Tucson, but Tubac and different areas around here. And I think that will continue to grow as time goes on and the West becomes even more dense. Places like Tucson and southern Arizona, and also West Texas, Marfa, and all those areas will also be increasingly looked at.
That's interesting, Victoria, because I know that you moved out to Silver City, and as soon as you moved out, like before you even built your house, you're like, Nancy, Lisa, you need to come out. We're in a new place. And so that's how we, ended up on all these road trips, and now here we are in Tucson. But you came out of Southern California where we first met you. Do you see it different than even San Diego when you look at Silver City and you look at Tucson in regards to the art market and then just the communities? I feel they're stronger for some reason.
Well, I feel like, this is an opinion, which may not be popular in San Diego, And there's a lot of wonderful artists in San Diego.
Oh yeah.
But I think the art tends to be a bit slick, unless you can find the right galleries. And so, but if you go to La Jolla or someplace like that, the galleries tend to be slick. If you go in other parts of the city, you find stuff that's to me it feels more authentic. But I think the light, we were talking about the light in those areas, and the coastal light is interesting because it's rarely as intense as it is here, even though it's in in the southern part of the state. But because it's too close to the coast, it's very much influenced by fog. And if you have to go maybe 40 miles inland before you get the intensity of light that you find here in New Mexico, and even then, the conditions are slightly different. I don't know exactly, but it has a lot to do with agriculture and the fact that the deserts there are so heavily farmed that you have a lot more humidity than you do here.
And just people too. You just have so many more people with cars.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you get.
Yeah.
We don't have that, luckily, especially in Silver City.
Yeah.
No, we're very lucky here. No.
Yeah. This area is, we rock. The air is really, really clear.
Well, we have rocks. I know that. So.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing too. The diversity of the Sonoran Desert to me is.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely fascinating, and I wanted to ask each of you because we're big activists in getting people to get outside and take a walk. And we have a Facebook group called 1 Hour Walk, #1HourWalk, to get people out there so they start to see the little things. So I wanted to ask each of you, talking about all these artists coming out here, painting the saguaro cactus, and we're going to Saguaro National Park tomorrow again. I'd love it. If you could take a walk with any artist, a 1 hour walk, who would it be, whether they're live or passed on, and where would you take that walk? So let's start with you, Victoria.
Oh, well, could I take 3 artists?
Oh, well, she's having a picnic too.
I'll bring the food and the beer. Okay, I would like.
Okay, can we come?
I want Richard Diebenkorn, Wayne Thiebaud, and Fritz Scholder to go with me, and I'm not sure. I really love these guys' artwork, so. Fritz Scholder, I saw a painting of his when he was still in Oklahoma at the Indian school down there, and I saw it in the Nelson Gallery in Kansas City, and it really affected me. And also saw Wayne Thiebaud's work there, and those people got me started on the idea that I wanted to be an artist. So I appreciate them, and being able to spend a short time with them would be something I can hardly imagine.
Right on. So where are you going to take the walk?
Oh gosh, well, I do it right here in Silver City. I was out at the Nan Ranch yesterday, and I found some great canyons, and I found an old stone house that was tumbled down. So
can we move in?
Yeah.
Well, it's not move-in ready unless you're a rattlesnake.
But she's bringing beer and wine, so that's okay.
Yeah.
Cool. That's right on. Right, and you're on the Continental Divide, and that's a new trail system that's going up there. So that's really awesome. So, Mark, what about you? Who are you taking on your 1 hour walk, and where?
Well, if I didn't say Maynard Dixon, I think I would.
I know.
The Wayne Thiebaud and Fritz Scholder are two really great choices, both of who were devotees of Dixon, by the way, for Thiebaud, who's still alive, and Scholder used to come down to my gallery and check out the Dixons because he really enjoyed his work. So I would just have Maynard tell me where he wants to go, and I would hope that he would want to go to some of the areas that he loved that have not been changed, and then some of the areas that have been remarkably changed, and to get his take on where he sees our world headed, environmentally. And I think it would be very enlightening to me. And, I think in some parts he'd be extremely sad, and others he would be hopeful. And then hopefully he'd make one or two sketches for me.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, he's like, come on, I got to add to the gallery. Now, okay, so you've got the gallery. Now, do you sell any of his artwork, or is it all like off limits?
So the museum part's off limits. Yeah, it's part of the museum. But I do get pieces that we sell of Dixon's work. We always have a few, half a dozen or so that are not part of the museum, either that somebody wants us to sell for them, or I've already have duplicates that really, it doesn't add to the story. So we always have some work that's available, and I've probably sold over 300 Dixons in my career.
Wow.
So
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot.
Fun
That's a
seeing
lot.
them.
Wow. Well, everyone, thank you both for joining us, Victoria and also Mark, and everyone again. So, Mark, your next Charles Bloom murder mystery is coming out in May, right?
Yep, Indian School Days, and it should be out about the first week in May.
Okay, so is the best place to go medicinemangallery.com for that?
Yep, that's the best. That's the best way. And all the other books are on Kindle, Amazon. They can go to our gallery or Audible. As well.
I know people love Audible. They can drive and listen to the book. That's awesome. Yeah. And everyone, again, MaynardDixon.org is the website to go to look more at his work, his bio, and also visit the museum. Go to the gallery. It's far better than websites. Get out there and go for a 1-hour walk. That's it, in a gallery. That's the best. That's one of the best walks you can take. Also, everybody, keep up with Victoria. Go to victoriachick.com, and she is an early 19th, 20th century print collector, and good luck with that. try to work with her on that, but go look at her artwork. And also, if you go to blendradioandtv.com, you'll see Victoria in our expert department, and you can read her articles there. And like I was saying, the one about the Arizona artists, and there's so many more artists to talk about, but time is time, and a lot more are featured in her article that you'll see up in nationalparktraveling.com, as well as in the April-May issue of parksandtravelmagazine.com. Thanks, both of you, for joining us. We're going to close with a little music about the saguaro.
Oh, awesome.
From our friends Michael and Spider. Go to michaelandspider.com. This is called Inside Saguaros, and it's off of their album Perfume of Creosote Desert Exotica #1. So, hey, why not? All right.
Sounds wonderful.
Thanks for joining us. Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a great weekend. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye. All right, here it is, Inside Saguaros.